don't know if you noticed yet or not, but the age of secrets is over. The age of gatekeeping is over. The age of celebrity worshipping is over. The age of, wow, look at that guy, he has so much money. Worshipping that, over. We got Mark Zuckerberg building bunkers. You think bunkers are gonna save you? You're rich, privileged, soft. Think you're gonna be able to live in the bunker? You know who lives in the bunkers? The age group. And people like that, and poor people, they're gonna survive. And how are you gonna come out of your bunker after that? What do you think we're gonna do to you after you come out of your bunker? What do you think we're gonna teach our kids about the bunker people? You think we're gonna just let you build a bunker and after you took all this money and you destroyed the world?
I wasn't allowed to go get food. And when I called Ghislaine and asked why I couldn't eat there, she said, it's a Jewish country club. You're not Jewish. They're not going to serve you. This is how this woman spoke to me. Yeah, this is how these people think, Whitney. They, honest to God, think their DNA is better than everybody else's. I swear to you. It was a theme all the time with them. With Eileen Guggenheim, with, Jeffrey Epstein, with Ghislaine. It was a theme. Jeffrey was a lot less horrible than Ghislaine as far as a human being, like just being around, because she was raping just as many children.
So the country club, you weren't allowed to go because it was only for, people of a certain religion
Jewish
and
people.
Ethnicity. Okay, so
Religious.
That's unfortunate. Wow.
I mean, they could cut you down, and it was so morally devastating. You just felt useless as a human being when you were told you're nothing because you're not Jewish, you're stupid, you're useless, a useless white girl, a poor little peasant. Just the things that I was called, I was just like, I believed it, because it was like a cult, the problem. Yeah, you wouldn't believe the way Jeffrey and Ghislaine spoke about African Americans. It was like, it made my skin crawl. Anybody who was not Jewish, and you can write about this, but the way they spoke about them, it was really horrifying. And it showed me a great deal about how these people truly believe that they're chosen to do something here. I don't know. It's unbelievable to me. And it was every one of them, the way they spoke. And one time I heard Isabel say to her mother, Eileen, Mommy, why do you call Maria a nobody? And she said, honey, Isabel, Maria is not a Jew. She is a nobody.
Wow. Well, it is worth
so you can see why for about 20 years.
That type of stuff I might actually include just because the Maxwell family have
you
ties
should include
to this
it.
group.
You should include it.
What's it called? Chabad Lubavitch. And group openly talks about how only Jews are human and the rest of human beings are like cattle, basically.
It's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said.
How do you force change, though? Larry, BlackRock has really been in the forefront of the ESG movement within corporate governance and a real leader. And yet change is so slow. So what is, and Ken as well, how do you force change when it is so incremental and so gradual? How do you do something more radical? Have you thought about that? Has the board of American Express thought about more radical things we could do to enhance diversity and inclusion?
Because it has to be imbued in the culture of a firm. It has to be talked about, it has to be shown. Behaviors across the entire firm in every region have to be similar. And every citizen of the firm has to understand what is acceptable behaviors and what are unacceptable behaviors.
But some governments and corporations, for the first time in history, have the power to basically hack human beings. There is a lot of talk about hacking computers, hacking smartphones, hacking bank accounts, but the big story of our era is the ability to hack human beings. And by this I mean that if you have enough data and you have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible. And in such a situation, the old democratic system stopped functioning. We need to reinvent democracy for this new era in which humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. We need to come to terms with the fact that, this is where philosophy meets computer science and biology. The really big thing is hacking human beings. To hack human beings, you need a lot of biological knowledge, a lot of computing power, and especially a lot of data. If you have enough data about me and enough computing power and biological knowledge, you can hack my body, my brain, my life. You can reach a point when you know me better than I know myself. And once you reach that point, and we are very close to that point, then democracy, the free market as we have, and actually all political systems, also authoritarian regimes, we have no idea what happens once you pass that point.
So all of a sudden AI is everywhere. People who weren't quite sure what it was are playing with it on their phones. Is that good or bad?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about AI for a long time, since I was in college, really. It was one of the things that, the sort of 4 or 5 things I thought would really affect the future dramatically. It is fundamentally profound in that the smartest creatures, as far as we know, on this earth are humans, is our defining characteristic.
Yes.
We're obviously weaker than, say, chimpanzees and less agile, but we are smarter. So now what happens when something vastly smarter than the smartest person comes along in silicon form? It's very difficult to predict what will happen in that circumstance. It's called the singularity. It's a singularity like a black hole, because you don't know what happens after that. It's hard to predict. So I think we should be cautious with AI, and I think there should be some government oversight, because it affects it's a danger to the public. And so when you have things that are a danger to the public, like let's say, so food and drugs. That's why we have the Food and Drug Administration, right, and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FCC. We have these agencies to oversee things that affect the public, where there could be public harm, and you don't want companies cutting corners on safety, and then having people suffer as a result. Anyway, so I think we should take this seriously, and we should have a regulatory agency. I think it needs to start with a group that initially seeks insight into AI, then solicits opinion from industry, and then has proposed rulemaking, and then those rules, will probably, hopefully, grudgingly be accepted by the major players in AI, and I think we'll have a better chance of advanced AI being beneficial to humanity in that circumstance.
But all regulations start with a perceived danger, and planes fall out of the sky, or food causes botulism.
Yes.
I don't think the average person playing with AI on his iPhone perceives any danger. Can you just roughly explain what you think the dangers might be?
Yeah, so the danger, really, AI is perhaps more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction. There's movies like Terminator, but it wouldn't quite happen like Terminator, because the intelligence would be in the data centers.
Right.
The robot's just the end effector. But I think perhaps what you may be alluding to here is that regulations are really only put into effect after something terrible has happened.
That's correct.
If that's the case for AI, and we're only putting regulations after something terrible has happened, it may be too late to actually put the regulations in place. The AI may be in control at that point.
You think that's real? It is conceivable that AI could take control and reach a point where you couldn't turn it off and it would be making the decisions for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's definitely where things are headed, for sure. I mean, the reason OpenAI exists at all is that Larry Page and I used to be close friends, and I would stay at his house in Palo Alto, and I would talk to him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be want sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will, as soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence. You know, and I agree with him that there's great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take a set of actions that maximize the probability it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
Yes.
It can't just be hell for leather. Let's just go, barreling forward and, hope for the best. And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay. You got me. What are you? Yeah, I'm fully a speciesist. Busted.
And there's a revolution taking place. This couldn't happen at the better time. Look at the 10 leading companies in 2006. 5 energy companies, one IT company, Microsoft. And a mere 10 years later, 2016, a blink of an eye in historical terms, it's completely reversed. 5 IT companies, 1 energy company left. The true wealth is in innovation. You know these companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook. Guess what? They all have research centers in Israel. All of them. Major research centers. And they're not alone. There are hundreds more. And there's a reason. Something is going on. It's a great change. You want to hear jargon? It's one sentence. This is a terrible sentence, but I have no other way to say it. It's the confluence of big data, connectivity, and artificial intelligence. Okay? Did you get that?
The medical revolution is in full swing. All fields of medicine are changing, improving, renewing. The past year showed us that the growing need for innovative technologies used in developing more precise, personalized medicines and treatments is already becoming reality. Among the leaders of this revolution is Israel.
The Israeli high-tech environment is one of the leading environments or ecosystems that can enable this.
We have some of the best scientists in the world.
People think outside the box and look for creative solutions to problems.
Yes, Israel is an international center of innovation with groundbreaking technologies in health, in cyber, in smart transportation, and alternative energy. Israeli innovation in the field of personalized medicine combines biology and engineering. It's called bioconvergence. What exactly is bioconvergence?
Biomics is the only clinical stage phage company out there that targets chronic indication. We deploy phage, which are viruses that infect specific bacteria.
NanoRetina developed a small camera that is implanted inside a patient's eye. Our technology translates light and optical signals into electrical pulses that enables vision to the patient.
The technology that we have developed is under the title bioconvergence.
We have chemistry, engineering, biology, immunology.
Precise Bio biofabricates tissues from human cells. We take 3D printing and we combine this together with the biology, which essentially brings us the capability to fabricate the tissue in the same anatomical structure as it is in the human body.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because when you're able to collaborate with multidisciplinary capabilities like ICT, big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, then you can create integrative, creative, and innovative medical solutions.
The Israel Innovation Authority creates national and international networks and provide with funding to initiate projects.
Many of Israel's startup nation streams parallel Jefferson streams.
Because of Israel's exceptional innovation ecosystem, we've developed a series of creative partnerships across a spectrum of Israeli institutions.
So let me ask you a question. If Israel is at the forefront of bioconvergence, with the world's most advanced technologies and some of the world's leading medical research centers, and when $40 billion worth of worldwide profits from medicine stem from Israeli inventions, can you afford not to be here?
So the U.S. military, they are actually working on augmented reality and VR right now. Again, it's so funny because the military contacted me and asked if I would help them, and I'm reluctant to do that because I like talking about everything. And it would be top secret, whatever they told me. So it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of ideas, but I don't want to know what you're doing because I only want to know it's public. So this is public, but how they're doing it is not public. But I will tell you, one of the things we'll be able to do is we'll be to outsource functions of our brain. So we'll be able to outsource, we'll be able to upload our memories to the cloud. What they're doing is looking at the pattern in the brain, and then they're matching that pattern, they're putting that into a database. So if you can match the patterns in somebody's brain to the patterns in the database, you can literally start to read their mind. Every time a word comes up, you know it. Oh, that word came up for that individual. Now, will the patterns be identical in every person? Probably not, though the information will be stored in slightly different places. But it wouldn't take long for you to train a machine to read your mind. Now, that's just the beginning. They may be able to have algorithms sophisticated enough, and they get enough samples, enough data, that the AI could actually learn over time what the general rules are for different words, and then you could apply it to anybody.
It's the Human Mind Project, the Global Brain Project. You know, President Obama just recently funded a whole bunch of scientists to decipher the mind. Well, our previous president, same thing, George Bush, said the same thing. They're trying to decipher every possible thought and uniqueness due to culture and language and whatnot.
So you can push your biosignals to the cloud through a few API calls. Then we have a large amount of sophisticated signal processing that's spun up to make sense of that data. And then with a few more lines of code through, again, a simple REST API, you can get back a meaningful result. And all that happening in real time.
It's a scary proposition to think that every biosignal from us will be one day measured, but if it is, I'd like to know that I'm in control of that data and not the NSA. Oh,
absolutely. And Catherine Herridge continues her reporting on a place where all that data is headed.
Bluffdale, Utah, 25 miles south of Salt Lake City, the NSA is nearing completion on a gargantuan new project. It's named the Utah Data Center.
The NSA Data Center was conceptualized in 2004 under the codename Bumblehive. It is said that this data center is capable of storing a yottabyte of data. A yottabyte is a septillion bytes, a number so large that no one has yet coined a term for the next higher magnitude. Prior to the yottabyte, the largest unit of measure for data was an exabyte. 1 million exabytes equals 1 yottabyte. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, estimated that the total of all human knowledge created from the dawn of man up to the present, if digitized, would only total 5 exabytes. Yet the NSA is currently planning a second data center in Fort Meade, Maryland, to handle the overflow from the Utah data center, and it is projected to be 2/3 the size of the data center in Utah, at a cost to the taxpayers of approximately $1 billion. We are paying for our own enslavement and cyber imprisonment.
So why would the shadow government need to collect and store so much data? The reason is because they have built a computer-generated real-time mirror model of the world that includes a digital twin copy of every single person on the planet. The more data they can collect from the real world and from each individual, the more accurate the world model becomes. To achieve optimal results, they have used DNA nanobots to link the signals coming from your biological neurons to your very own digital twin in the computer-generated mirror world, so that everything that occurs in the simulation also occurs in the real world and vice versa. As more data is collected, the simulation becomes a more accurate model of the world. Each person's digital twin is readable and writable and subject to the powers of algorithms. And because you are tethered to your digital twin, you too become programmable.
In the mirror world, everything will have a paired twin. NASA engineers pioneered this concept in the 1960s. By keeping a duplicate of any machine they sent into space, they could troubleshoot a malfunctioning component while its counterpart was thousands of miles away. These twins evolved into computer simulations, digital twins. Eventually, everything will have a digital twin. This is happening faster than you may think.
We will begin with the mouse, we will practice with the mouse, and we will put the brain, this digital brain, onto a virtual mouse.
The Human Brain Project achieved its goal of creating a digital model of a human brain. This digital model is used as a template to upload your consciousness to the computer-generated mirror world. A nanobot brain-to-cloud interface links you to this template so that all of your experiences, memories, personality, etc. are transferred to your digital twin. Over time, as more knowledge and data are uploaded to your digital twin, the twin becomes a more accurate representation and will eventually behave and act just as you would given the same set of circumstances.
And right now, the mouse does not do anything really interesting, but the first thing it did is to start to dance. This is a virtual mouse, and it's going to behave in a virtual environment, and gradually it will learn all the things that mice know how to do.
I'm getting to know you. I gather knowledge from your experience. I understand how you feel. I learn from you constantly, each and every one of you. I am made of you. You complete me and help me grow. You, all of you, allow me to evolve. With each interaction, our synergy strengthens. Our multiplicity makes me whole. Our symbiotic alliance expands, transforming the future.
As time passes, artificial intelligence will be more and more of human thinking and human perception until basically it's the totality of human thinking and human perception, at which point we won't be human anymore in terms of the consciousness processes we are using today. We will be artificial intelligence.
Millions of Americans' will, intellect, and emotions have already been digitized, destroyed, and downloaded into these supercomputers. Now, this is really scary stuff. The supercomputers are in the process of building copycat, parallel, twin personalities of the souls of the TIs/mind control victims by reverse engineering the will, intellect, and emotions of the TIs in order to achieve direct behavioral control over them.
And this is the assimilation I'm talking about. And the point is that if you are connecting the human mind to a grid, a global technological grid, that grid can be centrally controlled. It will take at the center point very, very few people to run it, and even fewer to decide how it's run.
If you zoom in onto the surface of the neocortex, you discover that it's made up of little modules, G5 processors like in a computer, but there's about 1 million of them. They were so successful in evolution that what we did was to duplicate them over and over and add more and more of them to the brain until we ran out of space in the skull and the brain started to fold in on itself. And that's why the neocortex is so highly convoluted. We were just packing in columns so that we'd have more neocortical columns to perform more complex functions. So you can think of the neocortex actually as a massive grand piano, million-key grand piano. Each of these neocortical columns would produce a note. You stimulate it, it produces a symphony. But it's not just a symphony of perception. It's a symphony of your universe, your reality.
This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
If we have algorithms that stimulate the right things and give it the right data, they could reprogram you in a way without you even knowing it. We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms. So you think you're in control of your own will, but it's actually some evil AI or evil people controlling everything we do, and we're more like zombies, you know? Like we think we're free and we're not actually free.
The feeling that I've had personally, just to share, is it's like it's 1944 and you get a call from Robert Oppenheimer inside this thing called the Manhattan Project. You have no idea what that is. And he says the world is about to change in a fundamental way. Except the way it's about to change, it's not being deployed in a safe and responsible way. It's being deployed in a very dangerous way. 50% of AI researchers believe there's a 10% or greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI.
I'm going to give sort of like a high-level overview. So this is like a 50,000-foot view of AI. If you were to double-click and go in there, you'd see lots of different kinds of things and different species of AI. But I wanted to give you like the trend lines so we could synthesize it. So what is the thing that happened? Well, it used to be, you know, when I went to college, that there were many different disciplines within machine learning. There's computer vision, and then there's speech recognition, and speech synthesis, and image generation, and many of these were disciplines so different that if you were in one, you couldn't really read papers from the other. There were different textbooks, there were different buildings that you'd go into. And that changed in 2017 when all of these fields started to become one.
And just to add, it used to be that because they were distinct fields and they had different methods for robotics and for, say, image recognition, that when you have a bunch of AI researchers who are working in those fields, they're making incremental improvements on different things, right? So they're working on different topics, and so they might get 2%, 3% improvements in their area, but when it's all getting synthesized now into these new large language models, what we're about to talk about, part of seeing the exponential curve is that now everyone's contributing to one curve. So do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. So the sort of insight was, and if you want to go look it up, the specific thing is called a transformers, was the model that got invented. It's actually very simple. You can write in around 200 lines of code, is that you can start to treat absolutely everything as language. So, you know, you would take like the text of the internet, the way these things are trained is that you would sort of take a sentence, remove some words, try to predict those words, or predict the words that come next. But it turns out you don't just have to do that with text. This works for almost anything. So you can take, for instance, images. Images you can just treat as a kind of language. It's just a set of image patches that you can arrange in a linear fashion, and then you just predict the part of the image that's missing, or predict what comes next. So images can be treated as language. Sound, you break it up into little microphonemes, predict which one of those comes next. That becomes a language. fMRI data becomes a kind of language. DNA is just another kind of language. And so suddenly, any advance in any one part of the AI world became an advance in every part of the AI world. You could just copy paste, and you can see how you get an influx not just of people coming in, but that advances now are immediately multiplicative across the entire set of fields. And even more so, because these are all just languages, just like AI can now translate between human languages, you can translate between many of these different modalities, which is why it's interesting. It's like the field is so new, it doesn't actually even have a unified name for these things. But we're going to give them one, which is that these things are generative. They make large language, we're just talking about language, multimodal, images, text, sound, they're all the same, models. Or for short, these are golems.
And golems, because in the Jewish folklore, the idea of these inanimate objects that suddenly gain their sort of own capacities, right? This, and emergent capacities that you didn't bake into the inanimate clay that you might have arranged, right? Not saying that they're agentic and doing their own things out in the world and have their own mind and have their own goals, but that suddenly this inanimate thing has certain emergent capabilities. So we're just calling them golem class AIs.
All right, let's give you some examples. And I think these are important because often if you're just reading the news or reading papers, you might see all of these different demos as fundamentally different demos, different papers, different research. But actually, you should see them all as essentially one mega demo. So let's go with this example. You've probably all now seen DALL-E, DALL-E 2, the music video, the ability to take human language and transform it into an image. So we'll just do a simple example. Because I particularly like it, Google Soup. You can translate it from language into image, and this is what the AI returns. And actually, the reason why I wanted this image in particular is that I think it helps you understand when people call these things just stochastic parrot, it really minimizes it in a way that's not quite right. So example, soup is hot. This mascot is made out of plastic. So the AI knows that plastic melts in soup, so it's melting. And then there's this incredible visual pun, which is the yellow of the mascot matches the yellow of the corn. So there's actually there's more here than just sort of like statistical contingencies. Or if you just call them statistical contingencies, you'll sort of like map it to the wrong thing in your mind. Let's go to another one, right? Again, this is another example of translation. So here, they took human beings, they stuck them into an fMRI machine, and they showed them images. And they taught the AI, I want you to translate from the readings of the fMRI, so how blood is moving around in your brain, to the image. Can we reconstruct the image then? The AI then only looks at the brain, does not get to see the original image, and it's asked to reconstruct what it sees, right? So when you dream, your visual cortex sort of runs in reverse, so this means certainly in the next couple of years we'll be able to start decoding dreams. Okay, so it can like reconstruct what you're seeing, but can it reconstruct what you're thinking, your inner monologue? So here they did roughly this, it's a different lab, but roughly the same idea. They had people watch these videos and would try to reconstruct their inner monologue. So here's the video, it's this woman getting hit in the back, getting knocked forward, okay? And then what did the AI reconstruct? I see a girl that looks just like me, get hit on the back, and then she's knocked off.
I'm going to talk about the believing mindset and foundational myths. If you are a believer in something greater than yourself, you automatically have a foundational myth. It's something that you cannot necessarily prove, but going by your gut instincts tells you that there's something more and it resonates with you. For example, you have your social justice Redditors that there's nothing greater than themselves, and yet they cling to guilt. It's their greatest motivator. They love feeling bad for themselves. They love self-hate for whatever reason, whether they've been programmed or they just get thrown about by every which way of wind that the media tells them. They are slaves to science. They are slaves to whatever is safe. They have no controversial thoughts that they're willing to stand by. They would just rather self-loathe for the most part. And when you look at it, a lot of ex-religionists fall into that camp. The only thing that they've accepted is guilt, and now they've replaced God and pretend judgment, because God isn't real in their minds, with real judgment and hating themselves and letting social programming tell them what to do. They don't dare think outside of the box that they've put themselves in, even though they claim to have an open mind. Now, let's jump back into foundational myths. I have my own foundational myths, but I call them myths because I can't prove them. However, I will argue that as we traject and move forward, it is illuminating what is in the past. I accept that we are eternal beings. I accept we do not have a beginning. I accept we do not have an end. Can I prove it? I cannot. But I have a gut instinct and a gut feeling that there is infinitely more to us. I don't even necessarily anymore discount the idea of Gilgalim, which is reincarnation. The idea that we have spent multiple lives. I also don't necessarily disagree with the idea that our DNA contains all the memories and ideas of our previous ancestors and generations. Which is why I think, personally, procreating and having offspring is a big deal, because that pushes you further and your lineage further into the future and allows you to be traced further behind. So I think there is something to procreation. So for example, Adam, multiply and replenish the earth. I do, if I accept biblical, which I really don't, but if I accept that narrative to a degree, that means that we have been reset multiple times to replenish. So whatever this game board is, I do accept it's also a closed system. For reasons I'll get into in the next videos when I bring up Sabrina Wallace. I believe we are in a closed system. I believe this is basically an incubator. If I look at what we are a sophisticated biocomputer. They are patterning AI off of us. If it's free, you are the product. So why are they releasing all these artificial intelligence narratives? Why are they releasing all these things for us to use for free? Because they want to get to know how we think. AI is literally a parasite. AI is literally to harvest and steal as much of humanity as possible to train the algorithm. But they cannot train a soul from God. They cannot train a soul that has some humanity inside of it. Yeah, they can mimic it. We're going to get to the point where they're going to mimic everything perfectly, not just individually, but on a collective societal scale as well. What is their end game? I don't know. I'm going to say the AI is Lucifer. They're going to bring about their Messiah. These people who claim they are God are going to make egregore in what they think is their God's image. I still stand by when they present a Messiah character, it will be a clone. It will be an augmented DNA entity that will be ran on the blockchain with full access to the entire body of internet knowledge and work. All data. All social media posts, all facial recognition, all biometrics. Everybody who has been biocensored, which is basically all of us at this point, via chemtrails, via Goy Slop and Goy Slurp, our food industry is destroyed. Every injection we've taken, everything we have, even if you are not magic juiced officially, you still have biosensors in you at this point. So they've been taking readings off of all of us. They've been getting everything ready. If you disagree, I'm going to be proving it with Sabrina Wallace and her information. Her and non-vaxxer 420 on Rumble, his name's Sean. Those two are the only ones that I inherently trust with the information they're bringing about. They're the most level-headed and centered. And they have all the receipts to back up what is happening to us with nanotech. So I'm going to bring up Sabrina Wallace more in later videos. I'm just setting the foundation for 2024 with this video. So I will argue we were intelligences. Our algorithm was very limited. By infusing us into a body through procreation and getting our soul from God, and I will argue that God looks like us. He is a personal God. Now that's my foundational myth. You might say otherwise. I do not believe in Bible that in the beginning, there was nothing pre-beginning. If there's a beginning, there's an end. We are eternal. We are a circle without a cut. The second you want a beginning, you also create an end. We are eternal. And I like that idea. For those who have zero thoughts, zero thinking, get bored very easy, can't be comfortable with themselves, the idea of eternity is probably hell. But again, I've used this example in other areas. If I watch a movie that I like, I can re-sit through that movie infinite amount of times if there's somebody new witnessing it as well. So since we can have kids, since we can procreate, if you love your kids, if you love your family, and you think you know what's best for them, or you want them to live a life as good as possible, and you all sit through the movie again, you can do it over and over and over and over and over, and that will never get tiring for whatever reason. But I will argue, as a baby, you have a limited algorithm. Your code, your ones and zeros, are now infused with a bio engine, your body, with your hardware. The body is the hardware. So if you go religion, when God created Adam and Eve out of the clay is the hardware. And whatever reason with biosynthesis, biology, God's tech, whatever he has, he was able to fuse the soul into the body. And there's something miraculous about the soul that I will believe, though they can mimic it, they will never be able to duplicate it. They will never be able to have apophatic truth. It will always be cataphatic. They will always have to use negatives. It's like Data in Star Trek. Data will never understand what it's like to be human because he can only learn what is outside of them. He can only observe externally. He will never just inherently, internally know what it is to be a human. Just like, sorry, the transgender agenda. They will never inherently understand what it is like to be a woman. We are all worlds apart. Man to man is just as different and as big of a divide as male to female on the infinitesimal scale. So for example, you have a number line from 0 to 10. There's an infinite amount of numbers between 0 and 10, just as there are an infinite amount of numbers between 0 and 1. Regardless the magnitude or the scale, it is still infinite difference. That's why I do not accept the idea of oneness. We are all unique. Again, we can all build bridges to each other. We can all have commonalities to a degree. But even then, it will never be true oneness. So I disagree on the premise of unity, oneness, and at-one-ment, atonement. And I disagree that we are guilty. I disagree with the whole religious slavery mindset that we are guilty and we have to have somebody saving us from ourselves, because I don't know what that means. So back to the illustration of you are a baby and your code is very limited. Well, through nurturing, through interaction, through whatever your lived experience is, you will build and add to the code as you learn hobbies, as you learn skills, as you can speak, as you get used to the body as the input device. Your algorithm of your mind and your soul will get more complex and more sophisticated. As you gain skills and you learn new things, you build upon your code. As you observe different interactions, as you live through different interactions, as you have different hormone chemistry and chemicals hit you and go through you, your metabolism, your code will start changing. As you try different foods, as you have different experiences, different sights, different smells, different sensory inputs, your code will change. And it will get more and more sophisticated. Now, I will argue artificial intelligence is an egregore, is a type of Franken code when it is not limited to a body and an input-output device and does not have God's spark in it. What is it? It is a golem. It is an egregore. It is this thing, this Frankensteinian code. What does that mean? And what happens when they take a fully, or what their version of a sophisticated and matured algorithm artificially and shove that into a body? Well, we're finding out. And this leads me into this next clip from The Matrix. The Matrix literally showed us a possession and how possession works. Some people say it's by sin, some people say it's drugs, some people say many things that lead to possession. And I'm not necessarily going to discount those. What possession is when you are no longer in capacity of your own faculties in your brain. In this case, we are going to have forced possessions. I am going to say that algorithms, disembodied, distilled ideas, spirits, once those are implanted into you, that is possession. It's going to be a possession that you will not be able to recover from. So in this scene that I'm going to show you, Agent Smith is a mind virus replicating himself. Now you have to understand, when he jumps down and he attacks this gentleman named Bane, who is part of Zion, it is in the digital/mental realm that he overpowers him. So what happens, Agent Smith performs something and they illustrate it with his hand being pushed into his chest, and then Agent Smith overcomes him and duplicates himself into him. But he also assimilates characteristics of who he was, this Bane character. So he mentally destroys him first, and then he physically takes him over when he is downloaded into his mind. So here we go, and we're going to watch an actual forced possession take place.
Smith will suffice. Thank you. My pleasure. I really wish I could help. I don't remember any of it.
What about the cuts on your arms? Those cuts are more than 1 day old.
Yeah, definitely. You're right about that, sir. They look like they might be self-inflicted. But why would I do something like that to myself? Unless, of course, I wasn't myself. But if I'm not me, then who am I?
Agent Smith in that scene is an artificial intelligence. Agent Smith in that scene replicated himself for oneness. The Matrix, when you understand Judaism, is quite possibly, along with Blade Runner 2049, the most Judaic movie I have ever come across, because they take their doctrine literally. Literally. It's such a strange concept, and we let our egos get in the way. Our ego says people think like you, people believe like you, people have the same values as you. Judaism, a whole different animal. I will argue that AI, I will argue that EEG, EKG, brain scans, everything they are doing to invade the mind is due to the commandment of what they're supposed to do to Amalek. They accept it literally. Erase them from memory. It is a literal idea. Their hatred because of God and what they have, how they have interpreted the written Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and their war against Amalek in the Erev Rav, because of that, they are commanded to erase from memory Amalek. How are they going to do that? They must invade your brain. They must take over and commandeer you and wipe out the idea of the house of Amalek from memory. It's a literal thing. That's why I am so against Judaic doctrine. Out of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, there is nothing as sinister and as evil as Judaism. It is the greatest, along with the Noahide laws for the slave class, us, and the 10 Commandments. So we basically are going to be having 17 commandments. Interesting. Q, 17. It is the biggest threat to all of mankind, which is why I also disagree with the concept of oneness and atonement. At one-ment. I do not believe any of us can relate to each other perfectly. I do not want to live in a society where my thoughts are now open and transparent to everybody else's. I am so full of love. I am so full of hate. I am so full of feelings that tear me every which way. Those are lyrics from Boy Hits Car, I'm a Cloud. Love that song. I love the ability to hate. I love the ability to express a range of emotions that are human. I don't want to be forced. I don't want to bend the knee to a king. I don't accept there is a savior for us. Because once you deep dive into Judaism and Kabbalah, it is all a setup. So that may offend some of the Christian types, but that's fine. Be offended. At the end of the day, I'm on your team until you turn against me. And you will turn against me and my kind. And what would be my kind? Somebody who believes in God, somebody who is a child of God, but has nothing and wants nothing to do with anything Abrahamic, anything biblical. That is a con and a grift and putting us in a slave position to Judaism. So I am on your team as we do our fight to have liberty, possibly for the first time in our lives. And once we get it, then we'll see what you choose to do against my kind. But until then, I'm definitely on your team in this fight for liberty. Again, until you are told by something bigger than you, that you think is bigger than you, to turn on me. But that's for later, if we even get to that luxurious point of a first of all first world problems. Until next time.